Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to my studio. This is Paint with Lovejoy. Thanks so much for joining me today. In today's video, we are going to talk about watercolors. And this is an intro course for first-time and beginner painters wanting to try watercolors. So what you're going to see in the description box below, there's a link to a supply kit. And those are just generally recommended supplies that I recommend for watercolors. If you already have watercolors at home, please utilize the tools that you have so you don't have to purchase new stuff until you're ready or until you want to. But utilize what you have at home. Another thing that you're going to see in the description box below is a link to what I call a traceable. And a traceable is a way for my first-time painters to transfer the image onto your canvas or onto your paper before you start painting. And it's just a nice way so you can focus more on painting and less on drawing. Though I do recommend that you practice your drawing skills. It just helps you get better. So check out the link to the traceable, and there's also going to be a video on how to transfer your traceable to your paper. So check out both of those. And like I said before, this is an intro course to watercolors, and the only way that you get better is with more practice. So please practice. Paint this multiple times. You will find that with watercolors, you can paint the exact same image 4 or 5 times, and each one of your paintings is going to be a little bit different, and you're going to learn something from each one of those. So watercolor paper is not expensive, as expensive as canvas, so you can actually go through a little bit more with the watercolor paper. So please practice, practice, practice. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and jump into today's subject matter. Alright guys, this is going to be another fun watercolor painting. So grab your supplies and head on over to where you have your setup. And these are the general colors that we're going to be using. So you feel free to switch up based on the watercolor palette you have. And as always, make sure you take your progress photos. So I'm using Arteza watercolors, and if you want to know the exact color that I'm using, there is a link in the description box below with this exact layout. So as we start, we're going to start in the center, and we put a lot of water on the plate, and then you're going to add some pigment. And with watercolor, a small amount of pigment goes a long way in the water, and when you have a lot of water with your pigment, that's going to be your light color. So this is considered a light yellow. If you have less water and more pigment, to where you're grabbing the pigment directly just from that cake, it's going to be higher saturation, and this is considered your darker color. So as you get into watercolors, your saturation is going to play an important role. So here you can see I grabbed more of the pigment directly from that watercolor cake, and when I place it on top of that light yellow, you can see with more pigment, it's more concentrated, it's more saturated, and then because we're placing it on top of this light surface, it's going to bleed a little bit. So this is one of the wet on wet blending aspects of watercolor painting, and it's also one of the more fun aspects. And that pile of that light yellow that we had on the plate, we added a touch of orange to it. And then again, just using the tip of our brush and transferring some of this pigment into that wet area. And again, this is called wet on wet blending. And it's really fun to just kind of drop some of that pigment in there and observe how the colors are mixing together, how it bleeds. This is the fun part of watercolors. So kind of just enjoy this and keep observing what the colors look like when they mix. And just what it feels like to apply it. So doing the same thing with the red, and we did mix a little bit of that red with the orange. And again, you're just observing as you paint. And if you're a first-time painter, remember to take a deep breath and relax. I'm really proud of you for painting at home. And I want you to pretend like you're a 5-year-old. Just have fun. And with watercolor painting, you may do this particular image 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Each one of your watercolor paintings will be a little bit different. So I encourage you to paint often, and don't be afraid to paint the same subject matter a few times. All right, so here you can see we moved into the orange. I'm trying to fill in some of the white space. This is going to be the center, or the flower that our glasswing butterfly is resting on top of. So we want to make sure we can see this design through the wings. And now I'm going back to the yellow again, just kind of filling in any white spaces of the canvas with the pigment. And again, you can see how it mixes with the orange and the red. So just kind of play with this and have fun. And if you feel like switching out colors and maybe doing this with shades of blue and purple and maybe teal, give that a try. That would make for a really pretty flower. All right, so here we are still with the yellow and we're kind of extending the perimeter, the edge of this flower. And we are going to go for a bit of a circle shape. And we're going for a bit of a circle shape here. And as you can see, I am going right over that traceable. You could reapply the traceable before we do the outline, but also because this is watercolor, I can still see through the watercolor to where the lines are for when we get to that step. So you're doing a great job. Hopefully you're relaxing and forgetting about the rest of the world for a little bit. Again, as we use this yellow and just kind of fine tune, I was trying to think of the right word, fine tune the shape of this flower. And then again, we're going to go in with some of the oranges and the reds and just add a little bit more to it. So when you're in the beginning stages of watercolor, just take it kind of slow and just keep observing. That's the best thing about art, is you're going to learn, the more you get creative, the more you're going to see the world from kind of a new perspective. And you're just observing the same thing, but just from a new lens, a different perspective. So there's no exact perfect way for art. It's just more about the process and actually creating. So pause the video and take your progress photo. I do recommend that you let this fully dry before you move into this step. So we're going for a really diffused green and black. I already had that color, kind of a sappy green, olive green on my palette. But if you are on a more simple palette, take the light green, a lot of water with green, and then add a touch of black to it. And again, you're being very generous with the amount of water that you're applying. Be very careful. You do not want to overlap the yellow of your flower, because when we add this darker color in, anywhere the water is, that's where the color is going to go. So you do want to keep this particular application step separate from the flower. If you happen to overlap this and the yellow of your flower and the green bleed together, just take a paper towel and pull away the pigment. It's called kind of relieving the pigment off the paper, and then reapply the appropriate color. And again, that's considered a happy accident. Don't fight it too much. And again, don't be afraid to do this particular watercolor image 2 or 3 times. So as you can see in the background, each time that I grab pigment directly from that cake, it's the darkest. So the first place that I put my brush, that's going to be my darkest area. And then as I move along, it kind of diffuses and gets a little bit lighter. So that's another thing that you'll get comfortable with the process of watercolors. So now adding a little bit more black to that green and black mixture, going darker. And again, just kind of observe the place where you see me put this on the canvas or on the paper and mimic that to the best of your ability. This does not have to look exactly like mine. Just use this as a base and enjoy your process. So as we move into doing the outline, I highly recommend that you fully let your watercolor paper dry, because you don't want this black pigment bleeding into your background or your flower. And here I am using an India ink brush pen. There's a link in the description box for the supplies, and this is listed in there. You can also use a small pointy brush and black paint to do this. And whether you're using the brush or the brush pen, I want you to play with the pressure. More pressure is going to create a wider line. Light pressure is going to create a skinnier line. Totally okay if you have varying widths of lines as you're creating your butterfly. You're just getting good practice. And please feel free to deviate from this design on the butterfly. If you want to put your name in here, if you want to put hearts, my students have gotten very, very creative, but change this up, make it what you want. And like I said, just use this as a guide. And again, if you're holding your breath, take a deep breath. A lot of times when we start getting into these, the pressure of the brush and these smaller lines, my students tend to hold your breath. If you're noticing that maybe your hand is shaky as you go to make some of these lines, that also means you're holding your breath. So if you exhale as you touch the brush to the canvas, that's going to make it a little bit easier for you. So, and again, just laugh at yourself, relax. It's more important that you're actually going through this process and creating something rather than what the final outcome is going to be. Because especially for my first time painters, you are taking on a lot of information right now. Your skills will grow the more that you paint, and some of the stuff that you're finding difficult today will be so much easier on your third, fourth, fifth, 200th painting. So keep this up and try to focus more on how much you enjoy the process and escaping your regular daily life, the stresses. So. All right, you're doing great. And here, yeah, I did switch to the brush just to demonstrate that you can do the same thing with your brush. When you work with the brush compared to the ink pen, again, you're going to notice that is your first couple of brush marks will be almost that pure black, and then it'll start to diffuse. So you'll have to reload your brush with that pure dark pigment quite often, unless you kind of like the look of some of the more gray or lighter gray and the transparency. All right, adding the antennae and the legs. All right, and again, pause your video. I do recommend, again, fully letting this dry. And for this, they do make white watercolor paint, but I like using the white ink, or you can even use white acrylic paint and put it right on top of this. And again, by putting it on top of the black, it's just kind of breaking up the space, giving some highlights. And you can do this with the pointy brush. I'm using what they call a rigger or a liner brush, and it's got just, the bristles are almost probably an inch and a half long. So you don't have to use the exact same tools that I'm using. Use what you have at home. You could even use a paper clip or a toothpick to make some of these lines. So again, just get creative in the process of painting. All right, and again, just add whatever you want to this. I am so proud of you guys for painting. Keep it up, keep going, and I look forward to painting with you again in the future. Cheers. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the watercolor process, and I hope you like how your paintings turned out. Like I said in the intro, please paint this multiple times. Each one's going to be a little bit different, but each time you paint, you're gaining more knowledge and your muscles are remembering how to hold the brush, what it looks like to mix colors, how to kind of play with the water. So please just keep on practicing. With that being said, anything that you upload to social media, please tag me at paintwithlovejoy or hashtag paintwithlovejoy, or at the very least, please email me your photos of what you paint. When I post those on social media, it encourages other people to paint, and they're some of my favorite emails to receive in the morning when I'm drinking my coffee. So let me know how you're doing. Also, please leave suggestions on what you want me to create in the future. I am a solo show, so it's not like I can get them done super quickly, but I do have a nice running list with some awesome subject matters that you guys have recommended, so let's keep that going. Anything else, please let me know what you're looking for in the future, and I'll do my best to kind of incorporate that. But this has been a great project, the Paint with Lovejoy website. It has grown beautifully thanks to your support. So until next time, have a great day and happy painting. Cheers.